Hello and welcome to another show of From the Field. Today we have a lovely guest, Pranav. I should have actually asked how to pronounce his name before I start the stream. Mention that for next time, but if it wasn't a going horribly wrong with the start, it's definitely not a stream that I'm hosting. And also we have Ratan that has been on the stream multiple times, and I absolutely love the content that he generates. He was also the one that was around when I first did my inaugural stream. And yeah, he even reminded me today that of the horrific 1 hour muted introduction I did. So thank you for that, Return. It always helps to be reminded of those, those horrific memories, like when you're sleeping and you just.
We only made you do 10 push-ups for that, Casey. Not much.
That's true. You were being quite nice and lenient. I was actually thinking it's like reminds me of the time when you're in bed and you're sleeping and you remember that one thing you did in primary school, and then you get the cold sweats and everything like that. So yeah, what's life without a few little bumps along the road? So
Absolutely.
Yeah. To also highlight the fact that I somehow have a unique ability to always make something go wrong. So we had a couple of new starters recently, and I was like, yeah, I can get you swag. Don't worry about that. I got swag coming to Wazoo. So you'll pack up all the swag, attach the extra bag, and fly up to Auckland, and then I meet the guy for the first time in person. I've been helping him out, and then I give him the bag with all the swag, and then he opens it and pulls it out, and he's like, Casey, these are women's t-shirts. So. And I'm like, damn it. So, well, that's just how life goes at the end of the day. But so I now need to work out and mail him some actual men's shirts. And also, Brad, I see that you're here. Nice to see you. And yes, I do need to update the starting soon intro, because it did say starting at the top of the hour, which is a little bit further away than just in the half an hour mark. Is there anything else you want to add, boys, before I jump into some of the conferences and stuff that we have around, and if there's any conferences that you would recommend as well?
No, I think the big one is, again, Reinforce is happening. So that's definitely a big one. But yeah, at the end of this year, Pranav, I think we are looking forward to hosting our customers for the reInvent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot going on, and we're getting prepared for reInvent. So super excited to see our customers there.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And there's a couple that I just wanted to highlight before we jump into the really cool material, exploring local zones and all of the, the interesting things and how that can help out our customers. But I just want to share these few things first. So we have the own AWS conference we're hosting in Auckland, Christchurch, and Wellington from the 26th through to the 28th. So one day in each of those cities. And this is around .NET for developers, and just the starting stage. Like, how do you host .NET applications on like AWS, and how do you get started and how do you get the best out of it? It goes from like 100 level content all the way down to like pretty deep 200 to 300 level content. So there is an agenda for everyone, regardless of like your overall skill set. And not that I just don't want to actually pedal the AWS stuff as well. So there is another very interesting conference that's happening on the 5th of August, which is the Cloud Native Summit. Unfortunately, we're not sponsoring this one. It's on the list of things to correct next year. But this is a really awesome conference. And if you are in Wellington and you haven't actually signed up to this, there's lots of very interesting talks and topics that we covered over this. And I'll also be attending there, so you can avoid me before I end up breaking something. The Cloud Days, so Bunny, the Cloud Days one here isn't being live streamed. It is an in-person event, unfortunately. So well, I won't say unfortunately, very fortunately, but yeah, we were discussing whether or not we would have a virtual components to that Cloud Days, and because of the budgeting and all the other concerns around it, we didn't. We wanted to just have a full in-person event. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any virtual attendance for that particular one. Cloud Native is awesome. I would highly recommend going to that if you are. And then another one, if you are in the South Island, so Canterbury Tech, this is something that AWS does sponsor. So we don't sponsor the summit directly. We do it through partners. But the Canterbury Tech as the organization, where it helps, the businesses in the Canterbury region to actually, learn new things, do networking and everything like that, we are a sponsor of that. And the Canterbury Tech Summit, which I believe is in September, November actually. It'll be handy if I can read the screen. And yeah, these are really cool. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm actually going to this one as well. This was why I was also asking if there's any other conferences that you would recommend, Ratan, especially that's happening in New Zealand.
No, I don't think I'm aware of any more. I think this is a pretty good list actually already. Yeah, I'm excited about Cloud Days for sure.
Yep. I'm just going to post a link to the Cloud Days just because it can be a bit difficult to find through the old Google machine. And yeah, before we bore our watchers to death through conferences and everything like that, why don't you two do a quick introduction of what we're like, who you are, and then what are we going to be covering?
Yeah, Radhan, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hey, hi everyone. I think some of you might have already seen me a couple of times, as Casey mentioned. I love this show from the field. My name is Ratan Kumar, and I'm a senior solutions architect with AWS New Zealand. And yeah, it's really looking forward to talking about local zone, and for which we're super excited to have Pranav joining us. So Pranav, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yep. Thanks for having me here. Hey everyone, I'm Pranav Chastra. I'm a senior product manager at AWS. I led the launch of first local zones in LA 3 years back, and since then I've been focused on figuring out how and where we want to expand local zones, and also which services we want to bring to local zones as well. I'm super excited to talk to you, and thanks everyone for joining us to learn about local zones.
Nice.
So Ratan, just before as well, this we want this to be as engaging as possible. So if you have any questions about anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be about local zones, but you have access to really, two really amazing specialists here, both Ratan and Pranav. So yeah, just ask questions, and we'll do our best to make sure we can discuss them and get an answer to you.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Pranav, great to have you on our show. We are super excited that Local Zone is coming to New Zealand, and our customers are equally excited to know more about Local Zone, how it works, services that are going to be available on day one, and some of the common architecture patterns that you have seen that as customers have used for low latency use cases or HA use cases with Local Zone. So we would love to cover those things today in the session today with you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a lot to cover, and we're happy to ask any questions that comes up as we speak as well.
Great. All right. So why don't we start with something simple, really? What is AWS Local Zone?
Yeah, definitely. So AWS local zones are a type of AWS infrastructure that we've launched across multiple metros to basically address hybrid cloud and edge compute requirements. What we're doing here is that basically local zones bring compute, storage, databases, and other services closer to end users and on-premises installations. Logically, you can think of these as very similar to availability zones in the regions. It's just that local zones are not physically co-located with the region, and they are in a different physical geography. So in this case, when we're launching the Auckland local zone, the local zone will show up just like an AZ, but it'll be part of the Sydney region, and it'll be extended out of that Sydney region. So you'll have a local data center, but you'll use the endpoints of the Sydney region to access and launch resources into the Auckland local zone.
Nice. So it's essentially bringing compute services and storage and those things closer to end users.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And what are some of the key benefits that you would suggest that customers should keep in mind when they're thinking about using local zones?
Yeah, I think the first one, which is important one, is that these local zones are managed and supported by AWS, meaning customers no longer need to incur the expenses or the effort of maintaining their own data centers. They can basically use the local zones to meet latency or residency requirements. Um, the second piece is local zones provide elastic and on-demand experience, just like how customers are used to in regions, in AWS regions. And then these applications which customers can deploy in local zones can use existing core services which are available locally in the local zones. And the experience that we deliver here is exactly similar to how customers are used to in using those services in regions as well. So they can use all the familiar services and APIs and tools that they use in regions today. And finally, these local zones provide high bandwidth, secure connection back to the parent region, which basically provides developers the ability to use same APIs and tools to run latent sensitive workloads in local zones while they seamlessly connect back to services running in the parent region.
Nice. So suite of services that they have got access to in the parent region as well, along with a bunch of services that are available in local zones. So that's great. So let's unpack that a bit more. Given that at AWS we always like to work backwards from our customer needs. So which particular customer needs local zone is addressing?
Yeah, so customers of multiple industries are adopting local zones to unlock various edge computing use cases. We have our regions which cover large global footprint, and for most use cases, existing regions can meet customers' need. However, there are certain applications that are sensitive to latency or to the physical location of the data. For those use cases, local zones come into picture. As part of the broader cloud continuum, local zones allow customers to gain all the benefits of having compute and storage closer to their end users or to their corporate assets without the need to operate their own data centers.
Right. Okay. That's pretty interesting. So it's essentially this provides a way in which customers don't have to manage their own, the capacity and those things. It's fully managed by AWS.
That's exactly right. They don't need to worry about the capacity. They can scale on pay as you go basis and get the same elasticity that they are used to in AWS cloud.
Nice. And you mentioned about some of the services that are going to be available. So what can customers expect in Auckland local zone, let's say, when it becomes available?
Yeah, so local zones broadly, bring select AWS services to more places. And the idea there is to offer the same experience and benefits to developers that they're used to today in AWS. Today in local zones, we support services like EC2, EBS, ECS, EKS, VPC, and application load balancer. We also recently extended Die Connect support across multiple local zones in the US. And then as part of the EC2, we offer multiple instance families, including T3, C5Ds, G4DN, and R5D. We'll have more information on our webpage, and customers can always go there to figure out what services are available in which locations as well.
Got it. So customers can run container workloads in local zone as well.
That's exactly true. They can use the ECS service to run containers. They can also use Kubernetes, using EKS. And then, they're not just limited to the services which are available locally. Local zones are extension of the parent region, and they're connected via redundant AWS backbone connection. So apart from local services, all tools work in local zones as well. So API calls are logged via CloudTrail. Customers can also use powerful tools like CloudFormation, identity and access management, and auto scaling to manage, secure, and scale their applications in local zones. And they can also use other services like DynamoDB and S3 back in the parent region, just like how they do it today.
Got it. Yeah. So it means that there are a suite of services that are available in the region, which is nicely integrated with local zone, and customers can leverage that over AWS secure backbone, low latency and high speed, high bandwidth network.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. So look, I understand that local zone started in US, right? And we now have got plans to expand local zones beyond US. So do you want to tell us more about those plans and again, what are the types of customer needs that we are responding to through these expansion plans?
Yeah. So as of now, we've launched 17 local zones in major metropolitan areas in the US. These include places like New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and others. And we're also launching local zones in over 32 metros globally in 26 countries. And the overall goal here is to replicate what we've done in the US and basically allow customers to deliver a single digit millisecond latency experience to their end user across the globe. And along with these new locations that show up, we're also working on number of additional features and services, making it even simpler for customers to extend their applications to these locations.
Nice. So in terms of the expansion, as we mentioned already, that we have got Auckland coming in the ANZ region. We also are getting Perth and Brisbane, I believe.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we'll have Brisbane and Perth in Australia, and then we'll have Auckland and New Zealand that are also announced and planning to expand as part of the local zones footprint.
Great. So there are 32 new local zones, which is going to start to come available from late 2022 or early 2023 onwards. We're expecting, right?
Yeah, the plan is to start launching some of these in late 2022, and then others will show up in 2023.
Nice. We've got a bunch more. I can see from these orange dots in the Asian region as well. A bunch of them in India and in Hanoi and on these places. So that's great.
Quick question. What goes into a selection? Like, how do you work out where you would put a local zone?
Yeah, so it's pretty much working backwards from our customers' need. We look at which are the locations which are not addressed from latency perspective or from residency perspective, and then working backwards from those needs. We selected these locations, and it's an evolving process where we're always continuously hearing back from our customers and figuring out new locations where we want to expand local zones.
Cool. And Quanti TV, I've seen that name a lot, so welcome back. That said, for local zones, are they fully managed by AWS, or are they components that need to be patched, upgraded manually from time to time?
No, they are fully managed from by AWS. So we are responsible. We as an AWS is responsible for managing the data center, connectivity back to the parent region. All the aspects, the good things that you get in regions and AZs as well. As a customer, you can come self-enable a local zone and start launching resources there. You don't need to think about managing the infrastructure or operations or anything that you would typically do in your own data centers or on-premises installations.
To me, I think you still need to be managing the security patching to your EC2 instances if you launch them.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the service utilization, none of that changes compared to how it operates in the region, for example.
That is right. So once you enable these local zones, they just show up as another availability zone, and then you can create a subnet and start launching resources. So from the API experience perspective, from the broader services and features, they'll just look like another zone to you.
Got it. So if a customer, let's say in Auckland today, wants to give it a try to a local zone, can they do that today?
So Auckland local zone is not available today. We'll be launching it soon, but they can definitely go and try other local zones which are available in the US.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the trial in existing local zone.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a very easy and self-serve model. To get started, you just need to go and enable a local zone in your account before you can start launching resources in it. Once enabled, these local zones will look and behave similar to availability zones. So you can extend your existing VPC in the region to a local zone by creating a VPC subnet and assigning it to the local zone. And once the VPC subnet is established, you just simply select the subnet and you start launching resources there.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds pretty straightforward and easy to set up.
Yeah.
I mean, should I give it a try in my own AWS account?
Yeah, definitely.
Demo, yeah. So let me bring my screen.
And I'll move our faces out the way. There you go.
Okay. So I am in at the moment in Oregon region. And you mentioned, Pranav, that first thing to do is to enable local zone on my AWS account. So from EC2 dashboard, you go to EC2 dashboard. And from here, if I scroll down, I can see all the zones that are associated to Oregon region. And I can click on this. I can see that these are the local zones that are connected to Oregon region. So we have got Vegas here, Denver, LA. To turn it on, you simply need to just click on manage, and you can choose to enable or disable it. So for example, in this case, I've already got it Vegas and LA local zones enabled for my account.
And another quick, sorry, Ratan, another quick question just came in, which I think is quite good for this timing. For a local zone, does it have caching features similar to CloudFront? For example, because they have a much more stable connection for a region, are they also configurable with OAI?
Right. I think in terms of the caching, look, if you're looking to cache your static content, again, CloudFront is the way to do it. You can serve your local zone applications through CloudFront as well. So that would be the way to cache it. Yeah, I think that's the way. If you're looking for a cache to like Elastic Cache or something like that, again, as Pranav said, LocalZone has got some of the limited services available in the start with, and you can run your own instance of Elastic Cache on an EC2 instance, for example.
That's right. I mean, and then, as always, we adding more services. So for example, in LA, we started with this core set of services that I spoke about, but over time we added FSX and Elastic Cache, which customers can use to create their own caches. For New Zealand, at start, they can use use EC2 and build their own caches on top of EC2.
Yeah. Great. So this is how the enablement process looks like. I just want to quickly check that. What does my dashboard look like if I go to Sydney region? Just so that we get a little bit of a context that on the day when the local zones become available, what's going to be here. So at the moment, as you can see, that Sydney has got 3 availability zones. So that's all listed here. Once we have got, let's say, Auckland, Perth, those local zones are available, you will see that in the list here. And you can just choose to enable them, and that's all really needs to be done in terms of enabling those zones. And after that, essentially what, as Pranav said, you need to do is you can start to extend a VPC into local zones. So for example, if I go to my VPC dashboard here, I have already got a demo VPC created. It's a 10.10 CIDR range. So let me add a subnet, So in this VPC, if I filter it by 10.10, I can see that I've already got 2 subnets in this VPC. And if I select one of the subnets, I can see it that it's associated to US West 2B AZ. And this one is to 2A. These are 2 of my subnets in the region that already exist. And if I want to create a new subnet in the local zone, again, there is no difference to how you would do that with availability zones. So you go click on create subnet, select your VPC. And here, once you have got local zones enabled, you can, once you click on this availability zone dropdown, you should start see those local zones here. So as you can see in my case, I can see Vegas here, LA local zones. So you can just pick whichever local zone you want to deploy your resources into, or you want to associate this subnet to. So let's say I pick Vegas local zone, and I'll put my, a name for it. So I'll just put Vegas local zone.
We're going to judge your naming standard, by the way.
Yeah, I think there are good naming conventions, but yeah, I'll say I usually just tend to provide where it is so that it's easier to kind of understand. And I also tend to put either it's a public subnet or private subnet. So I'll add that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely do it as well because it makes configuring things in other services so much easier.
Yeah. And let's say I pick a CIDR range, 90. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I've got a name. I've picked the right availability zone, which is connected to this local zone here, and I say create subnet. And that's it. Now I'm pretty much all set to start deploying workloads in my local zone. from here onwards. So just for a quick demo of that, you can go back to EC2 dashboard here. So I am on my EC2 dashboard. Let's launch an EC2 instance in local zone. I say again, there's not much difference to how you would do or launch a EC2 instance in your region. So I'll say this is my Vegas web server.
And also as an example that you have never, you never too experienced to learn something new. So I was helping out at a, entry level, like fundamentals class for AWS, like what our training and certification team does. And like he was just going through it, and then like he's on the EC2 instance page, and he's like, I'm just going to bring up the right clicker menu. I didn't know you could actually right click to do actions on the EC2 in that instance menu. I've been always clicking on it, then going to actions drop down, going like terminate instances and whatnot. So yeah, that's, by the way, that's pro tip. You can actually now do like select the instance on that and then go right click and do your stuff from there.
Great. I also didn't know that, so that's a really good tip. Thanks, Casey. So yeah, I put my name. Again, I've already got a web server AMI, so I'll just choose that. But you can choose one of the your own AMIs or an Amazon machine image. So I'll select that. But the key thing to note when you're launching services in local zone is first instance type. So make sure that you validate on local zone side to confirm that the instance types that are available in the local zone. So for example, I know that in Vegas we've got T3 extra large available. So I'll go and select that.
What would happen if you selected an instance that wasn't available in the local zone?
I haven't tried that, but yeah, this is definitely something that EC2 is going to complain about if that instance type is not available.
Yeah, I think it'll just you will not be able to launch it, and it'll throw an error at the end. You can also, as you were searching the instance there, you can always search the local zone name there in the same dropdown. For example, you can write LAX, and it'll start showing up what instances are available in LAX.
Oh, nice!
I didn't even know this was. What is this magic? Why didn't I know about this? Oh. All right.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, that's it. Again, that's why we invite likes of Pranav into our calls. Brilliant. Okay, so I'll just pick again T3 extra large here. Oops. Yeah, T3 extra large. Selected that. I don't need a key pair. The second important thing, these are the only two important things when you're launching services in local zone. First is you pick the right instance type. Then second one is that you pick the right subnet. So here I'll go edit my subnet network settings, select the demo VPC. From the subnet dropdown, I'm going to pick my local zone subnet. So here you can see this is my local zone subnet. If I need a public IP address, select that. Then make sure that you've got the right security group. Again, usual stuff that you will do. You can either create a security group or select an existing one. And that's pretty much it, right? Yeah, so I've got selected my VPC, selected my subnet, pick the right instance type, and click launch. And it's done. I just say there's not a lot to demo about how to use local zone because the team has made it super simple. It's as if you're deploying, as Pranav said earlier, the same API, same things that you are used to working with in the region is available in local zone. So while this instance is coming up, one of the key things that I want to add here, which is something I learned again recently, is if you have got a need to actually use elastic IPs with your local zone. So if I go to elastic IP menu and say I want to allocate an elastic IP address, make sure you're picking the right network border group. By default, it is again associated to a region. So it's really important that you pick the right network border group. And what essentially network border group means, if I keep the technical jargons out, is defining that the place from where we are advertising these set of IP addresses. And this is what makes sure that the traffic is coming directly to the local zone instead of going via the parent region. So yeah, this is again, if you do not need elastic IP addresses, if you just leave with public IP addresses, local zone is automatically going to assign, or EC2 is automatically going to assign a correct public IP addresses, which is part of the network border group of the local zone. But if you need to pick your own elastic IP address, make sure that you select the right network border group.
But it will still work if you select a region one. It will just increase the latency. Is that how I'm understanding?
No. So if you, let's say, pick create an elastic IP address which belongs to the region, you cannot associate to a local zone instance, because again,
Okay.
it's a different network border group.
Yep, that's right.
I just want it to be like absolutely crystal clear on that one, just so people don't get confused.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like myself.
Just to see the difference, I've got, let's say, now 2 instances running, one in my Oregon region. So if I go to networking tab, you can see that it's running in availability zone US West 2A. And if you want to see the network border group, there is a place where it shows you. I think it is on networking tab somewhere, or maybe it's in the subnet settings. So yeah, you can see that in the subnet settings, which is, let's quickly do a check. And if I go here,
yeah, you see a
network border group. So US West 2 is a network border group. So that's really important to keep in mind when you are creating an instance. And if I just check quickly that what's a network border group for our Vegas instance, so it shows the first thing to check is that it's in network availability zones. As you can see, it's in Vegas availability zone or local zone, and the network border group for this one is also showing us that it's in Vegas. So that's some of the key terms to keep in mind, and when you are actually debugging or checking that whether you have launched the service in the right local zone. If you go to the local zone page and let's say search for Auckland, so when Auckland local zone becomes available, this is going to be the ID or zone name for local zone in Auckland. So just that, something to keep in mind. Brilliant. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to kind of cover. Anything else, Pranav, you would like to add in terms of the demo?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. As I say, again, it's super straightforward, really easy to use. You're not having to worry about managing the capacity or anything like that. Just by a few simple clicks, you have got an instance running inside a local zone, which is closer to your end users, and it can start receiving traffic over the internet directly to the local zone. So yeah, I think that the next thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, Pranav, is let's talk about some of the use cases for local zone. You have worked with some of the customers, and so starting with low latency scenarios, customers from multiple industries, I see in New Zealand as well, are leveraging edge computing for media use cases or for telco. So can you tell us what you have seen, in terms of customers leveraging local zone, particularly for low latency use cases?
Can we also cover off use cases that shouldn't be in local zones?
Yes, I think we can definitely cover that. So going back to the latency based use cases, these are the use cases where customers are deploying workloads in local zones, more in a distributed edge environment, where the intention is to deliver a single digit or an ultra low latency millisecond latency experience to their end users. A good example is, for example, the Supercell here, where Supercell, which deploy game servers for multiplayer gaming sessions worldwide to be closer to the gamers, they need typically 20, 30 or lower millisecond latency for an ideal and a good gameplay experience. And until now, customers like Supercell were using on-premises installations in various metropolitan areas to supplement our AWS regions presence. And now with local zones, these customers are deploying their low latency or latency sensitive game servers in local zones to run the real time and interactive multiplayer gaming sessions, which basically is enabling them to provide end users across the world with a great and consistent experience. Another example of low latency is media and entertainment use cases where customers like Netflix are migrating expensive artist workstations to local zones in specific metro areas like LA and New York. For these artist workstations, latency is again key as well, especially for jitter-free experience. Typically, these customers require 5 milliseconds or lower from their animation hubs or their offices to virtual instances running in local zones. And with Direct Connect, most of our customers, especially in metro areas like LA, are able to achieve as low as 1 to 2 millisecond latency from their animation hub to local zones and run these latency sensitive workloads such as live production, video editing, and closer to their artists.
Wow, 1 to 2 milliseconds. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah,
Yep.
and very important when for these artists when they are doing their animation or VFX workloads to have easy access or low latency access to compute.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen a lot of customers, especially who are in the same metro as local zones, achieve as low as 2 millisecond latency from their offices or their corporate assets, especially when they're using Direct Connect and getting that consistent latency.
Great. Okay, so in terms of the architecture, if we have to talk about the architecture for low latency, as we've been just discussing that customers can start with a VPC in the parent region. So if I use an example here with Sydney region again, is imagining that once we have got Auckland local zone available, so you start with a VPC and you've got a bunch of AZs there. As I was discussing earlier, you can extend your VPC to a local zone. Once you have done that, you start to create your subnets. Depending on your network zoning requirements, you can have multiple subnets associated to local zone. And the key thing, and then you're ready to start deploying your workloads, whether it's EC2 instances or container workloads. The important thing to keep in mind, again, this is really good, is you have got access to the same set of networking controls like route tables, security groups, NACLs that you're used to using in the region. So from that point of view, there is no difference. And internet gateway adjusts itself, as I was talking earlier, and for the local zone. So any traffic originating from internet and is targeted to local zone goes directly to the local zone. So and it, as if you need to assign elastic IP address, as we were discussing earlier, make sure that you're picking the network right network border group. Again, which is an indicator from where we are advertising these range of IP addresses to the internet. So this is the way that you can think of deploying a low latency workloads into your local zone. So now let's move to some of the hybrid use cases, right? That's another kind of a very common scenario that we have seen and we are hearing from local customers as well as part of their cloud migration journey.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is a very common pattern that has taken hold across multiple local zones, where customers like Mindbody are using local zones to migrate complex and interdependent applications from their on-premises to AWS. So let's take an example of Mindbody here, who had workloads running in their own data centers in LA metro area. And these customers have told us that it can be daunting to migrate interdependent applications to cloud together. And now with Direct Connect to local zones, these customers can establish a hybrid environment, which basically provides ultra low latency communication between applications running in their own data centers and then in local zones. And in turn, this basically enables customers to migrate applications incrementally and simplify their migrations drastically without refactoring their applications and sort of enabling ongoing hybrid deployments.
Nice, nice. So, I mean, we do have a number of customers here in New Zealand as well who use, Direct Connect to connect to Sydney region. So, just in terms of how local zone is going to be available through Direct Connect and some of the architecture patterns there, I just want to dive a little bit deeper into it. So, say you've got an architecture where you've got your Direct Connect connected with your local zone. You can either continue to use your existing Direct Connect setup, but just keep in mind that depending on your latency requirement, you might want to have a closer look at your Direct Connect setup and review it in the context of connectivity with the local zone. So make sure that the traffic path is optimized. So what do I mean by optimize? Let's discuss with one example here. For example, quite a number of customers we see today use a transit gateway and use transit WIF to terminate their direct connect with that kind of setup, one of the important things to keep in mind is transit gateway runs in the parent region. So this will mean that the traffic is traversing through the parent region. And this may not be an issue in some scenarios where and can have potential advantages. Like, for example, if you want to continue using centralized inspection of traffic, etc., you can simply leverage your existing Direct Connect setup without any change. But it may not be the most optimized network path, and especially for the latency sensitive workload. So in such scenario, I would say that consider a different Direct Connect setup, especially for local zone. And again, you can create a new DX link for connecting your on-prem environment with the workloads running in the local zone. The important thing to keep in mind there is that pick a DX location which is closest to your data center, and then you can set up a private WIF, terminating it either on DX gateway, which is a recommended approach, or directly on a virtual gateway. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about setting up hybrid connectivity between your on-prem environment and the workloads running in the local zone over Direct Connect.
And just quickly, someone came through with a quick question statement. They're preparing for the cloud practitioner exam, and they're familiar with all of the regional, AZs, education, regional caches, and everything like that. But they're asking if AWS local zones are a new topic for the global infrastructure. They are. My understanding is they are the newest form of the AWS infrastructure, right?
That is right. It's another infrastructure type, just like AZs or edge locations, where we're offering the select services in multiple metro areas.
Great. Okay. So again, moving on to the next sort of questions that we have quite commonly received from our local customers is the data residency. Some of the customers who do have certain types of use cases where data residency is quite important. So what's our guidance, Pranav, around data residency for customers who are planning to run workloads in local zones?
Yeah, so as a customer, you may operate in multiple geos, and where in each geo, regulations dictate where the data and infrastructure should reside. So, for example, you may be a public sector customer where contracts specify where applications are deployed, or you may be a real money gaming customer who is by regulations, you're restricted to deploy applications in particular states or in countries. I think that's where, in those situations, customers can configure their data to remain in local zones using existing services which are available locally. For example, they can use EC2 or EBS and other services that we spoke about locally to ensure that their part of their data remains locally and meet those guidelines. A key thing to keep into consideration is, different residency requirements come into picture in different industries and different geos. So it's always recommended that customers work closely with their compliance security teams to make sure that this works for them. A good use case is a real money gaming use case that we're seeing in the US, where broadly speaking, customers can run workloads across the US, but in real money gaming industry, customers are limited to running their workloads in specific states. So as a customer, if I'm serving my end users in Illinois, I need to make sure that my infrastructure is situated in Illinois as well. And now with these multiple local zones available across the US, these real money gaming customers are using these local zones to run their websites and their applications and make sure they're serving their end users from those geo boundaries and meet residency requirements.
Nice. Okay, that's good to know. So we do have customers who are leveraging local zone for meeting their data residency requirements.
That is right.
That it's important that they actually work with their own security team and policies team to check the local regulations.
That's exactly right. And I think going back to the question that Casey asked, which are the workloads for which people should use regions and not use local zones. So we covered latency and hybrid and data set residency use cases. Beyond these use cases, for most workloads, regions are the best places where customers should run and think about running those workloads, because especially regions provide the scale, breadth, and elasticity, and generally lower prices as well that customers would prefer for their workloads. It's the only select part of the applications where either latency matter or there are certain data residency requirements where customers should consider using local zones.
Gotcha. Yeah. So definitely use the right type of infrastructure for your use case.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last of the type of use cases again is about architecting for HA. And I mean, again, what have you seen common ways customers use local zone today, and they also leverage our global infrastructure footprint to meet their HA requirements?
Yeah, so we've seen different options being considered and used across multiple metro areas. There are customers who partition their workloads between local zones and availability zones running in the region, just like how they would partition their workloads between two AZs in regions for higher availability. And then there are customers for example, in LA metro area where we have two local zones where they're running and partitioning their workloads between those two local zones in the same metro area, just like how they would do it in AZs, two AZs in regions as well. And then there are these distributed edge use cases where gaming customers and telcos are deploying their workloads in nearby metros. For example, they're thinking about partitioning workloads between local zones running in the Houston and in Dallas metro area, where both can act as active for failover scenarios. And then there are certain places where because of latency reasons or for residency reasons, neither of those options work. So they cannot deploy in a nearby local zone or in an availability zone. In those situations, there are customers who are using Outposts in their own on-premises and using it as a way to create active or active passive failovers between the local zone and Outposts. And then there are other customers as well who are thinking, using it more like a hybrid scenario where they have a local zone and then they have on-premises data center and they're partitioning workloads between those two. The overall idea is there are multiple options that exist, and customers should always think about failover scenarios and make sure they're architecting according to their application and their requirements.
Nice. Yeah. So as we were discussing earlier, it's really important to first consider that which type of infrastructure is relevant in the use case that you have, and then how you can augment it with our global infrastructure footprint, whether it's the region, set of other local zones that are available, or Outposts, for example.
Yep. And that's an amazing segue into it. And how do you learn what's the best way to structure infrastructure? Whether to use a local zone, a region, or any of our edge solutions. Well, of course, we go through the whole rigmarole of training experience. like a lot of our customers and a lot of our partners, actually all of the customers I really have talked to and all of the partners I really have talked to are screaming out for people with cloud skills in any way or form. Like it's so hard to find anyone that has cloud skills, and they are just absolutely like screaming out for it. If you do have any questions, now's the time to throw them in. I'm going to quickly do the training bit, what will take about 3 minutes. And then the last, bit of this, like the show will be just, answering any of those questions that come through. So if you have any questions, chuck them through now and we will get to them in about 3 or 4 minutes. So the key one here as well is that if you are in New Zealand and you are a woman that is in tech or are wanting to build your technical skill set, then I would highly recommend that you Google the She Builds Cloud Up program. It is a free program that starts on September the 5th, and it is a 4-week course that, it's a flexible boot camp, teaching you all of the skill sets that you need for, just understanding and learning the cloud. And yeah, this is, if you can take advantage of this, I would highly recommend it because it is flexible, so it won't get in the way of your day job, so to speak. I'm just going to have to quickly set up my screens for the training slides. So if you just bear with me for 1 second. There we go. And obviously you have the top one here, which is and it has your sharing the application stuff on it. Let me move that up. There you go. At the very top of the screen, you have AWS Skill Builder, which is a free service or a website that we provide where it allows you to say you want to learn machine learning, or if you have a particular job title such as like data engineer or like systems ops or system engineer or something like that, you can just click on one of those and then it will give you like a course that is curated and that you can just go through them yourself. If you are in a bigger organization where it's really, really hard, or even smaller organization, I would say that it's really, really hard to get, dedicated sharpening the saw time, so to speak, and then definitely talk to your manager or anything like or similar to work out if you can actually do some instructor-led training. This is really awesome. I did it before I joined AWS, and it's still probably one of the best courses I have attended. And as I said, I just helped out one recently in Auckland last week, I believe it was, last Thursday. And yeah, I learned a bunch of stuff from it, even though I've been deep diving and doing a whole bunch of AWS stuff for like the last probably, 6-7 years. So like you can always learn new things. And yeah, if you're looking to do your cloud practitioner or fundamentals, then there are webinars and exam readiness material that you can have on this file right here. And if you're located in Australia and New Zealand, this unfortunately will not work out and work outside of those two geographies. But if you are, then at the very bottom here, if you're wanting to get your certifications, then I'd highly recommend you scan that little QR code down there and get yourself a 50% off discount voucher. Because, well, why spend money if you don't have to? That's the ultimate motto, really, isn't it? So
Nice.
why I did that whirlwind of a training stuff. I'll leave that training slide up there. It'll be available in the slot and the VOD, so you don't have to pressure yourself, but it's just easy to keep it there for easy access. But yeah, over to you, Tan. I see that there's another question came through that if you want to cover that off, or Pranav.
Yeah, I think the question is, how does this affect the privacy policies of individual region and countries when building data analytical application? Yeah, I think I believe this is in context of the residency use cases that we were discussing, and as I said, every industry and every geo has a different regulations and policies. So you will have to work with the compliance and policy teams to understand what those requirements are, and make sure that you can meet those using the services available in local zones. I think the key thing to keep in mind is there are certain services which are available locally, like EC2, EBS, and others, while other services are back in the parent region. So customers should think about whether they can use the local services to meet the residency and the policy requirements they may have for their own industry and geo.
That's anything you want to add to that, Return, or I think that
I think
covers it pretty well.
that's very, very well covered, Pranav. Yeah, definitely. And feel free to reach out to us. If you've got a specific needs that where you are thinking of using local zone and residency is a really key thing, reach out to me or Casey or to your account solutions architect, and we will definitely love to help and discuss that how best you can architect your application to meet your data residency requirements.
Yeah, definitely. Don't feel scared to reach out. We're always here to help. You'll be able to find us on LinkedIn and all of that jazz. And there is a LinkedIn group called AWS New Zealand Technical Community. So if you are wanting to, have input into what type of content we display, or if you want us to move in this particular direction, if you're liking the more podcasty style that we're trying to achieve here, then yeah, definitely let us know. Your feedback is very, very welcome. And can you use a 50% voucher on my following exams? Because unfortunately, the voucher is you have to do when you book your exam. So unfortunately, it's not retrospective, which sucks. So you could try if you could do a sneaky. You could see it. You could ask if you can cancel and get your money back, and then reapply using the exam vouchers. But of course, I have no idea if that works or not. So try at your own risk. I'm not entirely sure what the return or cancel those fees for exams. But you didn't hear that from me. I didn't give that advice just because this is recording. I'll just pretend that I lost consciousness and I can't remember what happened last minute.
Yeah, Casey is going ever and beyond for the Twitch audience, sharing some of these interesting tips. Great. Love it. Hey, we have a couple more minutes. So before we wrap it up, Pranav, do you have any message or anything that you would like to say to our audience, and especially the customers in New Zealand or in ANZ who are planning to use local zone?
Yeah, I think just to summarize, local zones are a new type of infrastructure that places storage, compute, and networking closer to end users and on-premise installations. As always, we're listening to the feedback and we're working on bringing more services to local zones as well. For these customers who are thinking about looking to use local zones, we recommend them to come and check out our local zones, which are available in the US and the ones that we're planning to extend in over 30 metros, including Auckland, Brisbane, and Perth.
Nice.
Awesome.
Hey, Pranav, again, thank you so much for taking time and speaking to us. It's always valuable to have folks from our product team come over and speak directly to our customers and hear and answer their questions. So really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, definitely my pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, and also on behalf of from the field hosts and also our community, we really appreciate you taking an hour of your day and sharing the content and your experiences and your knowledge with us. So thank you very much. And for everyone in our audience, it has been a pleasure. And it's been amazing for the people that have actually, reached out and actually asked questions around Brad, Bunny, Quan TTTV, and Kurik and Sangona Vaporu. I love people's names. They can always get so creative. But anyway, I'll see you next week, same time. And thank you very much. And with that,
thanks everyone.